The courtroom lights burned brighter than usual that afternoon, the kind of sterile, unforgiving light that reveals every detail, every smirk, every twitch, every mistake. When Vivian Langford walked in, heads turned as if royalty had arrived. She didn't so much enter as she descended. Every step of her 6-inch Louboutin heels clicked like punctuation marks announcing privilege. Her dress, custom-tailored Chanel, her diamonds, enough to fund a neighborhood. But what truly caught everyone's attention wasn't her wealth, it was her attitude. Vivian Langford, wife of real estate billionaire Charles Langford, carried herself with the ease of a woman who'd never been told no. To her, people were employees, not equals. Rules were inconveniences to be negotiated. Consequences? Something that happened to other people. And that day, as she took her seat in Judge Judy's courtroom, she believed she was untouchable. Her opponent sat just a few feet away, Maria Lopez, a single mother, event planner, and the woman Vivian had decided to crush simply because she could. The case, at least on paper, seemed simple. Maria claimed Vivian had refused to pay for a $75,000 charity gala that Maria's company had planned and executed flawlessly. Vivian claimed the decorations were tacky, the service subpar, and the entire event an embarrassment to her status. But the truth, as Judge Judy would soon discover, went far deeper, and darker. From the moment proceedings began, Vivian exuded disdain. She didn't look at Judge Judy, she looked past her. Her posture was a performance of superiority, her chin angled upward just enough to suggest that even gravity respected her. When the bailiff announced, "All rise for Judge Judy," Vivian didn't move. She gave a half-smile, a mock courtesy. It wasn't defiance, it was indifference. Judge Judy took her seat, glanced down at the case file, and raised an eyebrow. "Mrs. Langford," she began evenly, "you are being sued for breach of contract and defamation. You claim you owe nothing to Miss Lopez because her work did not meet your standards. Is that correct?" Vivian's voice dripped honeyed condescension. "Well, that's an oversimplification, Your Honor. When someone of my level commissions an event, there are expectations. I don't think Miss Lopez was equipped to handle a guest list of that caliber." Judge Judy's expression didn't change, but her tone sharpened like a scalpel. "So, you hired someone you claim wasn't capable, and then refused to pay her after she completed the job?" Vivian laughed, a dry, polished sound. "Completed? Your Honor, she should be thanking me. Exposure for my event is worth more than whatever she's demanding." The audience murmured. Maria's face flushed, but she said nothing. Judge Judy turned slightly toward her. "Miss Lopez, you'll have your turn. Mrs. Langford, in my courtroom, you answer the questions asked." Vivian's eyes glinted, a tiny flicker of annoyance breaking through her perfect facade. "Of course, Judge. I understand you have your procedures." The pause before the word procedures carried enough venom to freeze the air. Judge Judy leaned back. "Mrs. Langford, I've been on the bench for over 3 decades. I've heard every tone, every excuse, every form of arrogance known to man. And I can tell you this, the more expensive the jewelry, the weaker the case." Laughter rippled through the courtroom. Vivian's jaw tightened. "I'll have you know my husband." Judy cut her off. "I don't care who your husband is." That sentence landed like a slap. Vivian blinked, momentarily stunned. Nobody ever interrupted her, let alone dismissed her husband's name. Charles Langford wasn't just rich, he was a symbol of influence, the man whose donations could make or break campaigns, whose developments shaped skylines. But in Judge Judy's courtroom, money didn't build walls, it only cast longer shadows. Maria finally spoke, her voice trembling but firm. "Your Honor, she refused to pay after everything was done. She called me a scammer online. My business almost went under because of her." Vivian scoffed audibly. "I told the truth. Her decorations looked cheap. And if a few bad reviews shut her down, maybe she wasn't fit for real clients." Judge Judy's head tilted slightly. Mrs. Langford, did you or did you not attend the event you hired Miss Lopez to organize? Vivian smirked. Of course. Though it was hardly worth my time. Did your guests attend? Yes, hundreds. Celebrities, donors, politicians, real people, not small business types. And did you tell Miss Lopez, at any point during or after the event, that you were dissatisfied? Vivian hesitated. Not directly. But I assumed she knew. Judy's voice grew icier. Assumed she knew. You received what you contracted for, used it, and then withheld payment. That's theft, Mrs. Langford, dressed in couture. The room gasped. Vivian's smile faltered for the first time. Excuse me. Judge Judy didn't flinch. You heard me. Vivian leaned forward, her tone dropping an octave. Judge, with all due respect, I could buy this courtroom 10 times over. Judy arched an eyebrow. Is that a threat or a math problem? Vivian gave a cold smile. Neither. It's a fact. I own this city. The buildings, the people, the contracts, they all circle back to the Langford name. Even this courthouse sits on land my husband's company developed. So yes, in a way, she leaned in, her eyes glittering, I own you. The words landed like thunder. The air left the room. The bailiff froze mid-step. The audience collectively inhaled. And for the first time in years, Judge Judy didn't move. Her face went pale, not from fear, but from the sheer disbelief that someone had dared to say it out loud. The silence stretched on, thick and suffocating. Cameras zoomed in, capturing every heartbeat of that moment, the billionaire's wife with her icy grin, the stunned judge, the quiet horror on Maria's face. Finally, Judy blinked once, slowly. Her voice, when it came, was quiet enough to send chills through the gallery. Mrs. Langford, she said, each word deliberate, you may own a lot of things. But after what you just said, what's about to happen next, you will never own again, your dignity. And that was the moment the balance of power shifted. The audience didn't know it yet, but they were about to witness one of the most unforgettable takedowns in courtroom history, a clash between arrogance and accountability that would leave the richest woman in the room utterly, completely broken. For a long moment, the courtroom stayed suspended in silence. Vivian Langford sat with her manicured fingers resting on her Hermes purse, her lips curved into a faint smirk that suggested she still believed she was winning. The arrogance in her posture was magnetic and revolting all at once. Across the room, Maria Lopez sat trembling but resolute, clutching the binder that held her evidence, her entire livelihood compressed into 60 pages. The cameras panned from one woman to the other, capturing the contrast perfectly, power versus struggle, wealth versus work, privilege versus principle. Judge Judy took a deep breath, composing herself after the venomous line that had stunned even her. Then she leaned forward slightly, elbows on her bench, the kind of posture that meant destruction was coming. Mrs. Langford, she began, her voice calm but resonant, you seem to think this courtroom operates under your rules. Let me assure you, it doesn't. Vivian crossed her legs, her diamond anklet catching the light. Your Honor, she said smoothly, you're taking things far too personally. It was just a figure of speech. I meant it metaphorically. You're a public servant, after all. My husband's companies pay enough in taxes to. Judy's hand came down on the bench with a sharp crack. Stop talking. The command was quiet, but the authority in it shook the room. Judy's gaze was fixed and unflinching. You're not here to lecture me about your husband's taxes. You're here because you stiffed a small business owner out of $75,000, smeared her reputation, and then strutted in here like you're doing her a favor by acknowledging her existence. Vivian's smile faltered. With respect, Judge. Don't use that word. You don't understand it. Gasps spread through the audience. Even the bailiff's mouth twitched, he'd seen countless takedowns in this courtroom, but this one felt different. It wasn't loud or theatrical. It was surgical. Judy was cutting away the layers of entitlement with precision, and Vivian didn't even realize she was bleeding yet. Maria's hands trembled as she opened her folder. "Your Honor," she said softly, "I have proof that she approved every part of the contract. The decor, the staff, the catering. She sent voice messages confirming everything. Then, after the event, she sent an email saying she wouldn't be paying because the floral arrangements looked pedestrian." Judy's eyes narrowed. "Pedestrian?" Maria nodded. "Yes, ma'am. That's the word she used." Vivian waved a dismissive hand. "It's not personal, Judge. The event didn't meet our brand standards. I simply expressed dissatisfaction." "Dissatisfaction doesn't void a contract," Judy said sharply. "You don't get to eat the meal and then refuse to pay the chef because you didn't like the garnish." The audience laughed softly, but Judy didn't smile. She turned her full attention to Maria. "Miss Lopez, I want you to tell me exactly what happened after that email." Maria swallowed hard, steadying her voice. "After she refused to pay, I tried to follow up professionally. I sent reminders, called her office, even offered a partial refund to settle things quietly. Instead, she posted on her social media that my company was fraudulent, that I scammed her. I lost 3 major clients in a week. I almost had to shut down." Vivian chuckled under her breath. "Oh, please. If a few online comments can destroy you, maybe you were never meant for this level of business." Judy's head turned sharply. "Mrs. Langford, if I hear one more smug syllable come out of your mouth while this woman's talking, you'll learn the meaning of contempt faster than you can say, private jet." The billionaire's wife blinked, stunned that anyone had dared to talk to her that way. For the first time, her control slipped, just a fraction, but enough for everyone to see it. Judy continued, "You think this is about money? It's not. This is about the arrogance that makes people like you believe you're above consequence. You think your name is currency, but in my courtroom, it's just ink." Vivian sat up straighter, her tone cooling to frost. "Judge Judy, I've watched your show for years. I know your style. You like theatrics. But I'm not here to play your little TV games." The audience gasped again. The bailiff subtly stepped forward, anticipating trouble. Judy didn't even blink. "Mrs. Langford," she said slowly, "do you know why I've been on television for nearly 3 decades? Because the truth doesn't need theatrics. It just needs arrogance like yours to reveal itself." Vivian's laugh this time was forced, brittle. "You're twisting my words." Judy's eyebrows lifted. "Oh, sweetheart, your words are twisting themselves." The gallery erupted in low laughter, but Judy didn't break her focus. "Let me tell you something about power, Mrs. Langford. Real power doesn't have to announce itself. The people who have it don't need to remind others of it every 10 seconds. They certainly don't walk into a courtroom saying they own the judge." Vivian's eyes hardened. "You think this is about me? It's about perception. Do you know what a Langford reputation is worth? Billions. People line up to work with us, to photograph us, to bask in our brand. And you think this," she gestured vaguely toward Maria, "is going to ruin me?" Judy leaned forward, voice cutting through the arrogance like a blade. "No, Mrs. Langford. You're doing that all by yourself." Vivian fell silent, her jaw tightening visibly. The camera zoomed in, catching the faint tremor in her lip. Judge Judy turned back to Maria. "Miss Lopez, I'm going to ask you one last question before I move on to the evidence. When she refused to pay you, why didn't you just walk away?" Maria hesitated, her eyes shining. "Because I teach my kids that you stand up for yourself. Even when the person against you is stronger. Even when it feels hopeless." Judy nodded once, slowly. "Good answer." Then she turned back to Vivian, her eyes cold steel. "And you, Mrs. Langford, you're about to learn what hopeless feels like." Vivian's mouth twitched, the faintest hint of nervousness creeping in behind the diamond smile. She tried to speak, but Judy lifted her hand. Save it. We're about to move from gossip to evidence, and when I'm done, no amount of money in the world will fix what's coming next. The audience leaned in. The bailiff crossed his arms. Maria clutched her binder like a lifeline. For the first time in her life, Vivian Langford, Billionaire's wife, socialite, self-proclaimed queen of high society, was realizing she might not walk out of this room untouchable. When the court reconvened after a short recess, the atmosphere had shifted completely. The arrogance that had once radiated from Vivian Langford like expensive perfume was beginning to fade, replaced by something colder, a flicker of fear hiding beneath her perfect posture. She adjusted her diamond bracelet as if the glint of luxury could somehow restore her control. But the look in Judge Judy's eyes said otherwise. The bailiff handed Judy a thick stack of documents that Maria Lopez had submitted, printed emails, payment receipts, text messages, and digital confirmations. Judy adjusted her glasses and began to flip through them, page by page, her expression unreadable. Every turn of the page made Vivian twitch slightly. The room was so silent that even the soft crinkle of paper sounded like thunder. Mrs. Langford, Judy began, you testified earlier that you had no direct involvement in hiring Miss Lopez, that your assistant handled everything, correct? Vivian nodded cautiously. That's right. I don't manage trivial logistics. Judy's eyebrow lifted slightly. Trivial logistics like signing off on $75,000 in services? Vivian smiled, but it was tight now, brittle. I trust my staff. They know what I expect. Judy looked down at the top email in the stack. This one's interesting. It's from your personal email address, dated February 8th, 3 weeks before the gala. Subject line, my final selections. It reads, and I quote, Maria, these centerpieces will do. Don't be late with the lighting setup. I'll approve payment after the event. That's your email, isn't it? Vivian froze. Her lawyer shifted uncomfortably beside her, whispering something under his breath. I don't recall sending that, she said finally. Judy's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Then allow me to refresh your memory. This email was verified through your own domain by the hosting provider, subpoenaed at Miss Lopez's request. So either your assistant hacked your personal account, or you're lying. The audience gasped. Maria clasped her hands together tightly, holding back tears of vindication. Vivian's voice was quieter now, but her pride refused to die. Even if I wrote it, it doesn't change the fact that the event didn't meet expectations. Judy leaned back, tilting her head slightly. Mrs. Langford, you're not a movie critic. You don't get to rate a contractual service based on expectations. You accepted it, used it, and then refused to pay. That's not a disappointment, that's deceit. The words cut through Vivian like shards of glass. Her husband's money had always been her shield, her diamond armor, but for the first time, it wasn't protecting her. Judy turned to Maria. Miss Lopez, tell me what happened after the event. Maria's voice was steady now, strengthened by truth. When I asked for the payment, Mrs. Langford ignored my calls. Then I got an email from her PR firm saying that any attempt to publicly embarrass her would result in legal action. A week later, my business page was flooded with fake one-star reviews. They all used similar language, phrases like unprofessional, cheap, and scammer. I traced them to an IP address registered under Langford Media Holdings. Judy looked back to Vivian, eyes narrowing. Langford Media. That's one of your husband's companies, isn't it? Vivian shifted in her seat. Yes, but I don't control who comments online. Really? Judy flipped another page. Because your assistant emailed the PR director 2 days before those reviews went up, saying, and I quote, let's teach her a lesson about biting the hand that feeds her. Care to explain that? The audience gasped again, louder this time. Even the bailiff blinked. Maria covered her mouth, overwhelmed. Vivian's face turned a shade paler. "That's taken out of context," she said quietly. "No, Mrs. Langford," Judy shot back, her tone like a blade. "It's taken in evidence." The words hung in the air, deadly. Judy placed her hands on the bench, leaning forward slightly. "I want you to listen carefully, Mrs. Langford. You are not on trial for your taste, or your wealth, or your lifestyle. You're on trial for character. And every piece of evidence before me screams one thing: you used your privilege to humiliate a working woman because you could." Vivian's lips trembled. "You don't understand the pressure people like me face." Judy cut her off instantly. "Pressure? You think this is pressure? Pressure is trying to keep a business alive after someone like you destroys its reputation. Pressure is choosing between rent and payroll because a woman with diamonds on her fingers decided not to honor a contract. Don't talk to me about pressure, Mrs. Langford. You live in a palace built on other people's exhaustion." For once, Vivian had no comeback. Her silence filled the room more than her arrogance ever had. The audience sat frozen, hanging on every word. Judy flipped through one final page, then looked up. "Do you know what I find most insulting, Mrs. Langford? It's not the lies. It's that you honestly believed you could say, 'I own you,' to a judge, on camera, and walk out unscathed. You believe the world still operates the way your husband's checkbook does. But here's the truth: money might build towers, but it can't protect you from gravity." The audience murmured in awe. Vivian's lawyer muttered a weak objection, but Judy waved it off. "Overruled. Sit down." Vivian looked down at her hands, trembling now. Her diamond rings, symbols of invincibility, looked heavy, almost mocking. Maria sat quietly, watching her. Her expression wasn't gloating, it was heartbreak mixed with justice. For months, she'd been dismissed, ridiculed, called names. And now, the same courtroom where she feared she'd be silenced was handing her back her dignity. Judge Judy's voice softened just slightly. "Mrs. Langford, I've spent my life reminding people that this courtroom is not for the powerful, it's for the truthful. And right now, the truth is very clear." Vivian swallowed hard. "You're going to regret this, Judge. You don't know what kind of influence my family has." Judy's eyes locked on hers, steady as stone. "Mrs. Langford, I've outlasted politicians, CEOs, and kings of finance. If influence could buy silence, I'd have retired 20 years ago. But here's the thing about justice: she doesn't take bribes, and she doesn't flinch." The tension was electric. You could hear the hum of the cameras, the faint creak of the wooden benches. Judy closed the file and leaned back, her tone final. "I think I've heard enough." Vivian opened her mouth, but Judy's raised hand stopped her mid-breath. "Don't. Every word you say right now will only dig the hole deeper." The audience held their breath. Even Vivian seemed to realize that this time, charm and money wouldn't save her. The queen of luxury had been stripped of her throne, and for the first time in her life, she sat there like everyone else, exposed, cornered, and small. The gavel struck once as Judge Judy leaned forward, signaling that what came next would not just be judicial, it would be personal. The audience was still recovering from the last revelation, the moment Vivian Langford's lies had finally collided with hard evidence. But now, as Judy's tone dropped to that calm, frightening register she reserved for the guilty who didn't yet realize how much trouble they were in, the room seemed to brace itself. "Mrs. Langford," Judy began, her voice crisp and deliberate, "for someone who claims to live by principles of refinement and class, you've demonstrated neither. Instead, you've displayed the kind of moral bankruptcy that makes your wealth look pitiful." Vivian tried to sit taller, forcing a tight smile, though her hands trembled slightly on the table. "With respect, Your Honor, I think this is getting unnecessarily emotional. You're turning this into a personal crusade." Judy's eyes narrowed. "Emotional? You think the pursuit of truth is emotional? Let me tell you something, I don't need emotion to see right through you. You're used to manipulating people with politeness and pretending it's grace. But what you call composure, I call cowardice. It's just a prettier word for cruelty." Vivian blinked, stunned, as the audience murmured. Judy wasn't raising her voice, she didn't need to. The quiet authority in her tone carried more weight than shouting ever could. Judy continued, "You didn't just refuse to pay Miss Lopez. You used your husband's empire to smear her name. You sabotaged her business, all because she didn't bow deeply enough to your ego. That's not dissatisfaction, Mrs. Langford. That's abuse, of privilege, of influence, of basic decency." Vivian's face flushed red. "You're exaggerating. You don't know what it's like to be me. Every day, people try to take advantage, beggars, opportunists, social climbers. I've learned to protect myself." "Protect yourself?" Judy repeated, her tone sharp enough to slice glass. "You call destroying someone's livelihood protection? You call public humiliation strategy? No, Mrs. Langford, that's not protection. That's predation." Vivian opened her mouth again, but Judy didn't let her. "You've built your world on fear. People don't respect you, they endure you. They laugh behind your back, flatter your ego, and pray you never notice them. You mistake their silence for admiration, but it's survival. Because power that comes from fear never lasts. The minute you stumble, the crowd stops clapping." The audience went quiet, hanging on every syllable. For a split second, even Vivian's flawless mask cracked, her chin quivered, and her eyes darted toward the cameras as though searching for rescue. But the cameras weren't her allies anymore. They were witnesses. Judge Judy took off her glasses and placed them on the bench. That gesture, always small, always devastating, signaled that the gloves were off. "Do you know what I've seen in this courtroom, Mrs. Langford? Mothers begging for custody of their children. Veterans fighting for disability checks. Young people who've lost everything to greed. And then there's you, a woman with more than she'll ever need, standing here pretending to be the victim." Vivian's voice was trembling now, though she tried to keep her tone measured. "You're judging me because I'm successful. That's what this is, isn't it? You hate wealthy people." "No," Judy replied instantly, her voice firm. "I don't hate wealth. I hate what people like you do with it. I hate the arrogance that comes with thinking money is a personality trait. I hate watching someone with everything act like it's still not enough, that they have to crush someone else just to feel important." Vivian's lawyer whispered, "Maybe we should stop talking," but she ignored him. Her pride was louder than her survival instinct. "I came here to clear my name," she snapped. "You've turned it into a public spectacle." Judy raised her chin slightly. "No, Mrs. Langford. You turned it into a spectacle the moment you told a judge you owned her. All I've done is hand you a mirror. You don't like the reflection? That's not my fault." The audience erupted in quiet applause. Even the bailiff allowed himself a subtle smile. Vivian glared, her voice trembling with anger. "Do you have any idea what this will do to me? To my family's reputation?" Judy didn't flinch. "Yes. It will tell them the truth, something you've spent your whole life avoiding." Vivian's composure finally shattered. "You're humiliating me," she shouted. "Do you enjoy this? Do you enjoy tearing women down?" Judy's voice cut through the air like a knife. "Don't you dare hide behind womanhood to justify your behavior. Being a woman doesn't excuse being a bully. You've insulted the gender, not represented it. You've used it as a shield to avoid accountability. But today, that shield is gone." Vivian's breathing was unsteady now, her carefully rehearsed elegance dissolving into panic. "You think this will stop me? I have lawyers, connections. And I have the law," Judy interrupted. "And the law doesn't care about your connections." A ripple of applause followed, louder this time. Judy waited for silence before delivering the next blow. While you were having your recess coffee, Mrs. Langford, my producers confirmed something you might want to know. Your husband's company released a press statement distancing itself from this case, and from you. Vivian froze. That's impossible. Oh, it's very possible, Judy said evenly. They described your conduct as unrepresentative of the Langford brand. Translation: they're cutting you loose before your arrogance costs them more than it already has. Vivian's face went pale. The audience collectively gasped. For the first time, her voice cracked. He wouldn't do that. Judy leaned in, her tone soft but merciless. He already did. The silence that followed was suffocating. Vivian's eyes darted toward her lawyer, who stared down at the table, unwilling to meet her gaze. Maria, across the room, looked both stunned and saddened. Even she hadn't expected the mighty to fall this far. Judy folded her hands, her expression calm again. Mrs. Langford, you wanted control. You wanted ownership. But today, you've lost both. Not because I took them from you, but because you abused them. Power is like water, the tighter you try to grip it, the faster it slips through your fingers. Vivian sat frozen, blinking rapidly as though waking from a dream. The cameras zoomed in on her face, the trembling jaw, the faltering breath, the faint shimmer of humiliation breaking through the armor. Judge Judy straightened her papers. You said earlier you own me. But here's the truth, you don't even own yourself anymore. You gave that away the moment you let pride replace integrity. The gavel rested beneath her hand, ready for the final blow. But before striking it, she said quietly, almost to herself, I've seen liars, I've seen thieves, and I've seen hypocrites. But it's rare to see all three in one designer dress. The audience exhaled as if they'd been holding their breath the entire time. Maria wiped a tear from her cheek, whispering, Thank you, Judge. Judy nodded faintly. Don't thank me yet. The verdict is next, and Mrs. Langford is about to learn what real ownership feels like. The room was silent. Not the calm kind of silence, but the heavy, waiting kind, the kind that feels like the whole world is holding its breath. The gavel rested beneath Judge Judy's hand, motionless. Vivian Langford sat rigid at the defendant's table, her flawless posture now reduced to something brittle, almost childlike. Her diamond necklace glittered under the harsh courtroom lights, but it couldn't disguise the truth anymore. She looked small, frightened, and utterly alone. Judge Judy cleared her throat softly, her tone measured but loaded with gravity. This courtroom has seen arrogance before, she began, but Mrs. Langford, you have turned arrogance into an art form. You've used your wealth to silence others, your status to distort the truth, and your influence to rewrite the rules to suit yourself. But not today. Not here. Vivian shifted in her seat, her lawyer whispering frantically beside her, but Judy's glare silenced them both. You came here thinking you could manipulate this process the way you manipulate the people around you, Judy continued. You thought charm and money would buy you immunity. You believed your name carried more weight than evidence. And when you realized it didn't, you tried intimidation instead. You told me, she leaned forward, her voice steady, that you owned me. Those were your words. So let's talk about ownership. The room tensed, the audience leaning forward. You don't own people, Mrs. Langford. You don't own justice. You don't own truth. And after today, you won't even own the illusion that your money protects you. Vivian's jaw quivered slightly. Her mascara had begun to smudge at the corners of her eyes, the first visible crack in the marble facade she'd worn for decades. Judge Judy flipped open the final page of her notes. Here is my ruling. You will pay Miss Lopez the full $75,000 owed under the original contract. You will also pay an additional $25,000 in punitive damages for defamation and emotional distress. Payment is due within 30 days. Failure to comply will result in a lien against your personal property. Vivian opened her mouth to protest, but Judy's hand came up before she could form a word. I'm not finished. The entire courtroom froze. In addition, Judy said, her tone like steel wrapped in velvet, a formal letter will be sent to the state attorney's office regarding the interference and online harassment you orchestrated through Langford Media. They can decide if further action is necessary. Because in my courtroom, accountability doesn't stop at the verdict, it follows you home. A stunned gasp rippled through the audience. Vivian's lawyer went pale, whispering, "We can appeal," but she didn't respond. Her hands had gone limp in her lap. The diamond bracelet she'd worn so proudly now hung loosely on her wrist, clinking faintly like the sound of chains. Judge Judy leaned back, folding her hands. "You once told me that you owned this city." "Well, Mrs. Langford, cities don't remember names. They remember legacies. And your legacy, from this day forward, will be arrogance exposed." Vivian's lips trembled. "You don't understand what this will do to me, to my family. My husband." "Your husband made his statement already," Judy interrupted, her tone firm but not cruel. "And I hope, for his sake, he learns from this before arrogance becomes the family business." For the first time, Vivian's composure shattered completely. "You've ruined me," she cried, voice cracking, echoing across the wooden walls. "You've turned everyone against me." Judy's eyes softened, but only slightly. "No, Mrs. Langford. You ruined yourself. I just made sure the world saw what you were hiding." The audience erupted, not in laughter, not even in applause, but in stunned awe. The woman who had walked into this courtroom dripping in entitlement was now sitting in silence, stripped of every illusion. Judy looked toward Maria. "Miss Lopez, justice isn't always about victory. Sometimes, it's about reclaiming your name. And today, you've done that. You stood up to someone who thought she could buy the truth, and you proved that decency still wins." Tears streamed down Maria's cheeks. "Thank you, Your Honor. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to be heard." Judy nodded. "You've been heard." She turned back to Vivian. "Mrs. Langford, you once said, 'Power means ownership.' I disagree. Power means responsibility. And you've shown none. So today, you leave here not as the billionaire's wife who owned everything, but as the woman who learned, too late, that integrity can't be bought." Vivian's head fell forward slightly, her shoulders collapsing inward. For the first time in her life, she didn't look like a socialite or a symbol of wealth, she looked human. Frightened. Defeated. Judge Judy lifted her gavel one final time. "The court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Maria Lopez. Case closed." Crack. The sound echoed like thunder. The audience exhaled collectively. Maria clasped her hands together in relief. The bailiff nodded respectfully toward her, then turned to Vivian. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "this way." Vivian rose slowly, her movements mechanical. The cameras followed her as she walked past the bench, past the woman she had once dared to tell, "I own you." She didn't look at Judge Judy. She couldn't. The weight of her own words hung between them, too heavy to bear. But as she reached the door, Judy's voice stopped her. "Mrs. Langford," she said softly, "for what it's worth, I hope this humbles you, not just humiliates you. Because humiliation fades. But humility? That could still save you." Vivian didn't respond. She pushed the door open and disappeared into the hallway beyond, swallowed by the flashes of reporters' cameras and the murmurs of a world eager to devour her downfall. Hours later, the footage aired nationwide. Within 24 hours, it was trending across every platform. #IOwnYou became a global hashtag, but not for the reason Vivian intended. Millions watched the clip of her arrogance unravel, the icy smile, the stunned silence, the verdict. The comments poured in, "This is what money without morals looks like. Judge Judy just gave the world a masterclass in justice. Power doesn't protect you from truth." Within a week, several luxury brands quietly severed ties with the Langford Foundation. Her husband's PR firm released a statement distancing his company from individual misconduct. And Maria Lopez? Her small business tripled in clients. Her name, once dragged through the mud, was now synonymous with resilience. But perhaps the most haunting image came from a single freeze frame, the moment right before the verdict. Judge Judy staring, pale but steady, across her bench. Vivian Langford's lips parted in shock. And beneath it, the caption that would follow her forever, "You can't buy justice." Because in that courtroom, on that day, the richest woman in the city discovered the one truth no empire can rewrite: money may open doors, but character decides if you walk through them standing tall.